Welcome back, everybody. So for those of you who joined late, I'm Leonie Smith with Building Belonging, and so we thought we'd do a little bit of a harvest when we took a look at those two questions that we invited for reflection. Um, what belonging feels like in your body and why you are here. So what would be a benefit to you if at the end of this time, what would you like to have received? So we'll just do a quick round. Actually, not even we won't do a round because we're too many. But I would love to hear from a few voices. Is there anyone who'd be willing to speak to the couple of prompts to get us started? If you can just raise your hand um, using the raise hand function at the bottom so that we can start to build our community learning space. Brian, welcoming your voice.
Yeah, thank you so much. I saw no one was raising, that's why I raised.
That's good.
Uh, I I mostly joined the session to learn how I can better connect with the team. I think for the last few months I've been struggling with allocating tasks and connecting with my team.
Mhm.
When I saw the session, I knew I would benefit. I would take in some things that I would learn. For me, it's a transition from my being an employee to being a startup or being someone who started something.
Mm,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, so looking for tools to help you connect with your team because there's been some struggle there. I invite you also to share as well in the chat as well because it will be able to help us to see what's up for people. But at this point, I'd like to also invite another voice in who'd be willing to share again for our collective learning and build on what Brian has shared for us. Is it Sen? Welcoming your voice.
Yes, it is. Thank you. I had the pleasure of speaking with Naka in my group, and um, what came up for me in terms of belonging is there's this a kind of like a nervous system reaction. So, what unbelonging feels like in relation to social belonging, because I think there are many different axes of belonging, but in relation to social belonging, I think it's a feeling of stress and a constant vigilance of am I doing something wrong? And that lives in my chest, and I notice that it comes out in me as fear responses, and kind of like constantly looking left and right to make sure that I'm not doing something um, wrong as considered for this group.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this other axis of belonging, which is, I think, a belonging which I'm still trying to find the language for it, but it's a belonging that lives just in my own self, something that I can radiate outwards to others, and um, and this feels a lot like relaxation and spaciousness, and knowing that there's the opportunity to try things and to play and be creative and um, not be punished or criticized for it. So there's a feeling of largeness and expansiveness versus the other kind of non-belonging, which is very small and contracted and fearful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for naming that because that's very much the different gradients or colors of what our experiences can be. And I also really wanted to lift up your naming of the nervous system because it's one of the things that is so important when we're looking at understanding belonging in ourselves and others and wanting to connect to others is to be open to the realization that we're not just people that are engaged in conversation and dialogue. We're nervous systems that are also engaged and to make room for that reality. So thank you so much for your share, Sen. Okay. Help me keep track here, Brian. Do we have time for one more or should we move to the next thing?
You can choose.
Okay. Why don't we make room for one more voice? a final voice, again, for collective learning and to build on the contributions of Brian and Sen. Anyone willing? Okay, welcoming your voice, Jasmine.
Thanks, Leonie. Hey, everyone. My name's Jasmine Harrison. My pronouns are she, her, and I work for the Environmental Defense Fund. I support a network of alumni who have gone through a program called Climate Corps, which is a fellowship program where we place grad students at organizations for summer fellowship programs. And this is, I think, 18 months into having a dedicated team for the alumni network. And we tend to be very like process heavy and strategize. And I would like to incorporate more feelings of belonging and a sense of belonging within the network, because I think that's really important to building the connective tissue of everlasting like networks, especially when you're doing climate work. You need community, you need people. And in order to show up, I think the feeling of belonging is really core. It's not just about strategy and programming. It's also about how you're invited or how you feel when you're in a space. For me, belonging feels very like settled, quiet, and still within my body. It doesn't feel frenetic, frantic, not looking around. It feels very, very peaceful and quiet. And I really appreciate this session and getting to learn from all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for naming those things, Jasmine. Both in your desire to bring in that sense of belonging into the current networks that you're affiliated in, and also having what sounds like a fairly clear and strong sense of what belonging feels like within your body. It's that piece of, and what we'll be exploring today around what it takes in to bring some sense of feeling and relationship to go alongside with the transactional nature of collaboration as a way to both more authentically express ourselves and to hold care for what's present. So thank you so much for naming that. Thank you to all our contributors to this, and including those who name things in the chat. I'm going to turn our attention back over to Brian.
Yeah, I just want to invite everyone who's following along. The chat is also quite alive, and people are sharing some real depth. I want to just bring in a couple of you spoke to relationship to place and to earth as a piece of belonging as well. So we are today practicing the relational qualities of belonging, and we live on the earth in a place. We're going to take a moment to center together. We'll do a little grounding exercise. So if we were actually sitting around a bonfire, I imagine there'd be some singing, probably some dancing. I'm aware that we are all joining in very different time zones and energies. Some of us are holding children. Some of us are getting ready for bed or coming off meetings. I'm still coursing caffeine through my system here on the West Coast. So I'd love to invite you all. This is, as with everything we do, belonging is an invitation, and belonging is the opposite of coercion. So we are inviting you to stretch into willingness and no further. So if your body says this is not something you want to participate in, that is totally fine. Please take care of yourself. The exercise is going to be one of movement in our bodies and then as a collective. So I'm going to lead that as an invitation. I'm going to stand. You're invited to either stand or sit. Both work just fine. And the exercise we're going to do after this is going to be about attunement. So the invitation here is to start attuning to your body. I don't know if folks are familiar with the Strozzi Institute. It's a somatics practice. So we're going to center first in our bodies, and we're going to center in motion as individuals and then as a collective. I just want to acknowledge this might feel weird. Normally in our Western kind of white dominant culture, we do not stand up and move our bodies in meetings, but we're trying to play with that. I'm reminded every day with my children that it's very natural for humans to move their bodies, and it's very unnatural to stay stuck in a chair all day. So if you feel comfortable, either in your chair or standing, please join. We're going to invite you to sort of breathe into your body, pay attention to what you're feeling, tension, any aliveness, any warmth, and put your left foot in front of your right foot so you're kind of balanced. I notice many of you are already starting to rock a little bit. That's good, that's natural. Let your body do what it wants. And this is a rowing exercise. So we're going to invite you to put your hands forward and then kind of pull into it as if you're rowing a boat. So we're just very slowly, don't forget to breathe. Just kind of feel the aliveness in your body as you pull into your arms. We're just rowing. It helps you to have an image of where you're rowing. I'm on a very peaceful lake. You can be wherever you'd like to be. In just a moment, we're going to switch feet. So your right foot is going to be in front of your left. On this next pull, you now switch. Nice and slow. Try to stay in touch with your body. Notice what you're feeling. Feeling more aliveness, more warmth. Feel where your feet or your butt are hitting the chair or the ground. And we're going to switch again in just a moment. And switch. So far, we've been in our own bodies, but we live as relational beings. So in just a moment, I'm going to invite us all into our collective body. And if you're willing, I invite you to sync on me. So you're going to try to move together at the same pace. I'm reaching forward and pulling. Reaching forward and pulling. See if we can try to, for those of you who can see the screens, try to sync together. Forward and pulling. We're staying in our bodies and trying to join the collective body. It's about staying centered in motion, amid change, in a collective. We all have different bodies and different paces. I'm starting to feel some tension in my shoulders. Just notice that. Up the degree of difficulty, we're going to switch our feet in just a second. And switch. Let's try to stay connected. Stay with the collective. No one left behind. There's no wrong way to do this. We're going to switch again. And now after this one, we're going to switch every single time. Switch. 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 And stop. Just take a moment, feel your body, notice what you're feeling, what sensations you have. I invite you to return to your seat if you're standing. Thank you. I needed that. I don't know about the rest of you who are less caffeinated, but it feels good to move. And yeah, I want to really try to invite people to imagine where we are. We're gathered around a bonfire in a beautiful place with a bunch of humans who we actually don't know. So there's an element of trying to read the room, trying to build a sense of trust. I was struck that all of you who spoke about belonging talked about a felt sense. So it lives in your body, right? It's belonging is inside of us. So thank you for taking the risk of doing something a little awkward with a group of people you haven't yet met. I don't use the word strangers because we're not strange, we're just new. Let me invite Leonie to introduce our attunement exercise.
Thank you, Brian. So the exercise is, as Brian mentioned, an attunement exercise. And so what I mean by attunement is that it's an invitation to look at to make room for what's happening for us in our soma, in our body, and in our nervous systems. Attunement is, the purpose of it is that, well, attunement itself is transformative for both those who are witness to someone who is sharing and also for the speaker who is sharing. And the invitation for this exercise is to I mean, there's many different ways that it can be applied practically. Um, as we've been talking about, our reality is that we not only receive information through the words that are being shared with us, whether through writing or in dialogue with somebody. Our somas, our bodies let us know what's happening for us. And we can become very used to ignoring those messages, particularly when we're doing work, because the expectation in organizations is that we are there primarily for the transactional pieces of work. We get paid to provide certain services, or there are expectations that are made about us and what it is that we have to offer. And we tend to operate in that space because organizations, while they rely on human beings, they are not human-centered systems. And so the invitation, which we will both demo and then give you an opportunity to try at least once in our time today, is to um, practice what attunement looks like. So essentially what attunement is being able to check in with your body when you are receiving information, to check in with your body when you are sharing information, and to see if in any way um, your nervous system, your feeling, um, is shifted or changed and transformed. It's not the goal of attunement or of this exercise. It's not as though if you don't have a shift, we're just wanting to invite for your consideration and opportunity to test this out and try it out. And as Brian said, you do this based on your own sense of willingness. So I just want to pause there to see if there's any clarifying questions, because we're going to go into a demo next. But just see if there's any clarifying questions or reactions to what's been shared so far. Okay. I'm seeing and hearing none. So then I think we can move to the demo. So we're going to invite Brian to share, and I will be the listener, and um, and essentially what's happening in this exercise is person A will tell person B about a moment when they felt disconnected or had a sense of non-belonging in the last couple of weeks. And in just a few sentences, 3, 4 sentences. And then you will end with a sentence about your body sensations as you are retelling the antidote. So what, if anything, is coming up for you while you are sharing this story? And then we're going to have an opportunity to both offer advice as a listener and offer attunement, and to see whether or not those experiences are different. So it's probably best if we demo it. So Brian, if you're ready, why don't we get started on that?
Do it. I'm
Okay.
going to invite Edna to go ahead and just pin us on the screen so you can watch our body language a bit better.
Already, pin both.
Okay. It's always having gallery view, so I'm not sure what everyone's seeing. Thank you. Are folks seeing it pinned? Does that work?
It's not, they're saying no.
Can you change your view to speaker? And then you will have only Leonie and Brian.
What are folks seeing?
When I go to speaker, it just shows whoever's speaking.
Mhm.
Okay, hold
I
on.
think what you probably want to do is spotlight, not pin. Pin
Okay,
is
maybe.
down for individual
Okay, hold on.
experience.
Leonie's spotlighted.
Okay, and then we just need Brian.
I don't know. I kind of like Leonie in the spotlight. It feels good for me.
All right,
Thanks, Ed.
get it done.
Okay, you're spotlighted, Brian.
Thank you. All right, Leonie,
Yeah.
I'll follow your lead. Tell me what to do.
All right. Um, yeah, so I'm really open to hearing kind of if you have something that's come up for you about a moment when you were not having a sense of non-belonging. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Thanks for the invitation. I returned from my 20th college reunion last weekend. I was telling Anne about this yesterday. And the reunion was interrupted by some Gaza protesters, some students. And it was all good. I was here for it. But then one of the older alums, older white gentleman, threw sorry, trigger warning, this is going to be maybe a little intense, threw a water bottle at the student protesters and hit one of them. And so you can't see all of me, but I'm a 6'4", 200-pound male presenting person. So I intervened and kind of stood in between the protesters and the guy throwing things, and eventually had to do a couple physical interventions with some other folks who were getting a little aggressive. And the sense of non-belonging came from the disconnection I felt with my peers who were annoyed that the protest was happening. Nobody else moved. So I felt very alone in the call to action and yeah, sort of unseen. Like, yeah, let me pause there. Oh, and the feeling in my body. As I retell this, I feel a lot of tension in my chest, like a yeah, preparing for strike kind of thing, like girding myself for impact.
Yeah, like well, like no wonder you're feeling that way in your body. It sucks that like your friends didn't step in and say or do anything. Um, yeah, if I were in that situation, I would have like, yeah, wanted to call my crew. We call my crew together. Okay. So I've now just offered Brian advice. Are you willing to share, Brian, what that feels like in your body? If anything's coming up.
Yeah, I think my original like complaint or sensation was feeling unseen, and I think I still feel that. Like I didn't.
Mm.
Yeah, when you jump straight to how it would feel for you or what you would do, uh, that tension is still there. Didn't feel acknowledged or witnessed, so I still feel a little like unsettled.
Mm. And I will say that as the witness or the listener to it, I actually felt like some heat
Mm.
as I was like literally like in the back of my neck and also like in my chest. Um uh yeah, this kind of like this almost like a sense of urgency, like, you know, wanting to kind of get on it, like, and get it done. Um and a little pissed at your friends for backing you up. Like all the, there's definitely like a storytelling beginning that's happening for me. Okay, so let's shake it out. And this time, Brian, I'm gonna invite you to share the same story. And uh and when you're telling me about this moment that you felt disconnected, um my work will be to attune to you. So and we'll see what that's like. It's kind of easier to kind of watch than to kind of give more words to. And then we'll check in with each other about whether or not that was different. So let me know whenever you're ready. Feel free. Actually, we're just gonna pause, and I just want to take some time to just attune to you. Um, and then I'll let you know when I'm ready to hear. Anytime you're ready, Brian.
Yeah, so I was having a really lovely connective experience at my 20th reunion with a lot of peers. Not all of whom are friends, but people with whom I'm friendly. And when the protesters arrived, we had very different reactions. I was like, good, I'm glad. What a great target. And my peers were primarily annoyed. And then when the person threw the bottle, I was the only one who moved, and I moved immediately. And I looked back at my friends to see if anyone, these people, to see if anyone was going to join me, and no one did. And none of that, no one was looking. And I just felt a sense of like, real disconnection. That here's a community that I value very deeply, and turns out we are not together. Like we're not aligned. As I retell that and reimagine, re-experience it, I feel lots of tension right here, which I'm trying to rub out. Maybe I should just feel it. And heat like up in my face.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing it. Literally, as you were telling the story, there was like this gap that existed that I saw present in your breathing, like particularly when you were talking about your friends not acting on it. So I noticed that, and I'm curious about if that's a sensation, if that's a feeling you're left with, is some acknowledgement about missing that moment to kind of be together with friends that you've had like these long relationships with, like some acknowledgement or wanting to be having a sense of togetherness. I'm wondering if that's true for you.
Yeah, definitely. That's a piece of it.
Yeah. And so now that we've done this, you've told this twice, I'm wondering, was there any difference for you when you check in with yourself on this experience as opposed to the earlier experience? There doesn't have to be, but I'm just curious if there is.
Yeah, I think the somatic experience of the first response and the second is it felt like you were with me, like over in my experience. So I felt more like accompanied. And you were showing curiosity. You weren't telling me what to do or how you would feel. You were sticking with like, how might you feel? How might Brian feel? And you actually gave me some more language to better understand my own experience, which is, there's a longing there, like a longing for, I wish they had joined, and I wish, frankly, our world was one in which this didn't happen,
Yeah. Thank you. For me, as listening, taking the time to just like attune with you, which for me was just taking in the body language and the facial expressions even before you spoke. It was something that helped to settle my system so that I could be in a better place of receiving what it is that you had to share. And I found that because you were the focus, it was easier to get to that place or to make that choice around making guesses about what was meaningful for you. So thank you, Brian. Gifts received for connection. So
Sorry, say it again.
gifts received for connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt good to be witnessed. I mean, obviously, unlike the exercise you all are about to embark in, I know Leonie very well and I have a lot of trust and care. So it felt good to like see your face.
Yeah.
It made me feel safer to share. You could hold what I was going to share.
Cool.
It felt good.
Thank you. If you could take us off spotlight again, I want to come back to the full group. So this is the invitation that we have for you. The difference is that you'll have a chance to switch. And before, so we're going to put the instructions into the chat. Who's taking care of that?
I'll drop a Google Doc. The instructions are a little complicated. So I invite you all to open it so you can track along. You all are very capable of doing this, but it's a little bit,
Does anybody have any clarifying questions before we put you into your pairs? Okay, we see that Antaja is stepping away. Okay, all right then. So we have the document now that has the instructions and checking with you. And are we ready for breakouts? It looks like. Okay.
Just maybe just a moment on timing. So we'll be in for about 15 minutes. The breakout instructions, if you click in the Google Doc there, will kind of walk you through the intended timing. I think the hope is that we'll be back in the same groups that you were in earlier, so you have some connection already. That might not be true for everyone. So also feel free to, please do take a moment to say hello to some other human out there in the world. And then, yeah, the invitation as always is to extend to willingness. This is a different thing than we typically do. That's kind of the point. So there's a chance to attune. And then, as Leonie said, we will flip. So you will be both the sharer and the witnesser. And the invitation is to, yeah, just really do your best to stay in your body. And we'll do some harvest on the other end of this about what this all means and why we're doing this in a session about belonging. I invite you just to stay with the practice if you can.
Okay. So ready.
All right, well, let's open up the rooms then.
And if anyone does not want to be in a breakout, please say so. You're welcome to stay here with me and Leonie and chat.
Welcome back, everybody. So, again, for the benefit of our collective learning, would love to hear from a couple of people about what that was like for them, and also to hear if there's any questions or reactions to the exercise. So I'd like to welcome the voice of a couple of people who would like to get us started. Okay, Elizabeth, welcoming your voice.
Thank you, Leonie. This was wonderful. Thank you for modeling this exercise and giving us a chance to practice. My question, I guess, is in order to attune to another person, it really seems like we need to already kind of make sure our own nervous system is regulated. Yes, I see Brian nodding his head. And I've also heard about co-regulation, which is super important. Like we can help each other regulate, but I guess it really starts with us. That's my question / takeaway.
It does start with us. If you recall in the demo, before I asked Brian to share the story the second time, I just took a couple, like a few seconds just to attune with him, and that was my way of being intentional about connecting to Brian, like at the somatic, yeah, with the soma, with the nervous system. So that is a valuable piece. You do start with yourself because one of the benefits of this process, which I forgot to say earlier, I learned this process from a woman named Sarah Payton, who is a brain educator and also was a trainer in nonviolent communication and does family constellations work. And you do start with yourself, because what I like about this exercise is that it's about establishing for yourself some trust that you can have connection with people that isn't just at the level of the intellectual, that you actually have capacity to have connection with people at the somatic and nervous system level. So just taking a couple of breaths, taking a couple of moments to attune is something that will at least get you started. And sometimes you'll have that will be a fairly easy transition. And sometimes we might struggle, but I invite the practice. I'm wondering how it feels to hear that, Elizabeth.
Yes, that is affirming, kind of what my own instinct was. And then someone else just wrote in the chat, like this distinction between attunement and co-regulation, and I guess that's where self-empathy maybe comes in.
Yeah, it is where self-empathy comes in. The thing with co-regulation is that you could say that it is similar to attunement. Co-regulation might need more information or probably like a sense of relationship to actually know what's happening for the person. With attunement, it's all on you. This is about what's within your own locus of control. So you can take time to check with your own system to see whether or not it can make space to take in what's happening in the system of another person. And you don't need any data from that person for you to be attuned. It's just a matter of you being attuned, a kind of centering of yourself. So that's a different, that's one of the key distinctions that I see between the two. All right, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Okay, welcoming your voice. Is it Parimala? Have I gotten that right? Or Pam?
Perfect. Parimala, Pam. Hi, everyone. I'm in Johannesburg, very cold here. It was such a gift that I had with Julie. So thank you, Julie. I forgot to say thank you, but thank you for sharing that. I think what rose immediately, and it was that 5-second chemistry, and it just shows that it happens over technology, was that we met, I think, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, energetically we connected at that space. Brian, the work in the body, the soma work rose up immediately for me. And it was us connecting with belonging and unbelonging and feeling that pain that arises and what we need to do to create a space for that pain, but also not to let that pain marinate in that space, but to actually create movement so that when you leave complete, even though it is in its imperfection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for naming that. You know, that piece that I want to lift up the piece that you named about the 5-second kind of chemistry piece. The reason why I find it so valuable is because there is a tendency that comes from organizational life and organizational systems to not make room for the feeling parts of ourselves. But the feeling parts of ourselves, we have feelings because that's our body telling us that something meaningful is happening. Can be something that's meaningful that we want to celebrate and want more of, or something that's meaningful that is disconnecting, that might be painful. And the reality is that if you don't take the moment to acknowledge it, it's going to show up anyway. Human nervous systems, they pick up pretty much everything. We really are terrible at hiding from each other. You can, bluster all you want. If you are having a sense of not having safety or belonging, it will show up. It will show up in the relationship. And so we're just making a little bit of room for that to happen. Yes, I love that. Body shouts louder than words. Thank you so much for that, Pam. So, and the reason why this is valuable when we're collaborating is because one of the things that I get called on to do is to come in and to do restorative practices, or to come in and to train organizations that have a principles around anti-racist. And what I increasingly have found is that, and I tell my clients, there's no checklist. There's no checklist on how to do these things. It really is about making space to attend to impact and for relationship. People often, I often go to organizations that are largely, white organizations, and I tell them, if you think I'm here to teach you how not to be racist, I can't help you. What I can help you with is to attune, because your body lets you know when you've disconnected from somebody. It shows up in some way. And what we can learn through practice is, including practices like this, is how to learn to trust our body so that when we are responding or reacting in whatever way, we have more information to be able to bring into that experience. I'm wondering how it is to hear that for you, Pam. Oh, you're muted if you're speaking.
Powerful, powerful. And I think I know I'm an empath, so I'm that 5-second person that can read the room and disconnect or connect deeper. And I think that calls for greater self-regulation. And when there's the passive aggressive gaslighting that's happening, then it seems as though, and I was telling Julie, it's not goosebumps, it's truth bumps that erupt all over my skin. And I'm like, hyper alert at that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's so important that we pay attention to those things. And then we can also make other choices, which has to do with how we communicate about how we make those things known. So someone might be able to guess, but if they don't guess, you can still, there are things that you can do, and because I'm a nonviolent communication trainer, to actually make explicit the things that are um, that may not be so easily named and seen. And what a gift that is to relationship, to be able to say things like, I'm having truth bumps right now. And so something about what's happening here is not working for me. Can we slow down a little bit so we can work through that? Because I really want to hear what it is that you're saying. So it's just making room for connection and truth.
Yeah, I'm
Which
wondering if you'd be,
Mm.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm complete. Go ahead,
I was
Brian.
gonna say, I wonder if you'd be willing to speak a bit to the different work that we may be, with the different socialization we're trying to overcome in different bodies. I'm just noticing this group is mostly female presenting.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that like the way I was socialized, I think women are tend to be socialized to be more attuned to the other, particularly to the male other, and men are less skill. We are given less skills and less training in how to be emotionally attuned, both
Yeah.
to myself, I'm perfectly honest, and to the other. And there's obviously race dimensions in class and everything else. And I guess I'm curious, like, how you think about that or hold it. This exercise we left, race and gender neutral, but of course it's showing up in the room. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about that.
The attunement piece is actually really important for that because, like this meme that's been going around about like would women choose the bear or the man in the woods or whatever. What it doesn't acknowledge is that your body tells you way before you see man or bear that it's there. And that's like epigenetics, that comes from like our history, it comes from the place that people have, depending on the identities that they carry. And so what it means, and then also too, your interpretation of those feelings shift depending on your own kind of background. Um, attunement can look like a lot of things. It can look like the exercise that we gave you. Attunement's also when you're walking down the street and you see a person. So I say this all the time as a Black identified person. When Black people like walk past each other on the street and they like nod their head, there's like tons of information that's being exchanged just by that one act. And it's important because it's a moment when you're being caught. And being caught, or what we could call belonging, is the most important human need. We will do anything for belonging. And what we're inviting, not only in the conversation that we're having in this space, but also part of our core work around belonging, at building belonging, is how to be intentional around building those spaces when operating and working within systems that don't make room for the relational, for the human experience. And so that's the invitation to literally practice, which is why we've decided to share this exercise today. So thank you so much for that, Pam. And I'm wondering if there's anyone else who has any other clarifying questions or anything to share from that experience. And I love all the heart emojis. I love all the thumbs up. So keep it coming. Including if things don't work for you or if you think I'm talking total nonsense, bring it. Totally open to hearing that. Okay, welcoming your voice, Rachel.
Thanks, Leonie, and thank you both for this session. What you just said about being caught is such a tremendous reframe for me in this moment, because oftentimes, because of my background and experience, I experience being caught as an experience of shame. Like I've been caught doing something wrong, or I've been caught being bad. And so this reframe of being caught, like being held and being caught, as an experience of belonging rather than an experience of shame, is just
Okay.
mind blowing and heart opening for me in this moment. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's amazing what that we have the ability to kind of shift our experiences with these words or these patterns that we have, and so welcoming when we have a sense of co-holding. I say this all the time when I do, particularly work, when I'm invited to do work around DEI work or anti-racist work. Not, 8/10 of it is just supporting a person to be seen. You don't even have to like get it. You don't even have to agree. Just to be able to be like, is this what you mean? And to be able to kind of work until you get that right. That's like the vast majority of what it takes to kind of build some sense of relationship and connection. And that can apply anywhere, in any circumstance that we are in. What can we do to create an atmosphere of people being seen? And what we can do to also show up and be authentic in our own expressions and ways of being. So thank you so much for naming that, Rachel. We have time to
Can I ask one
welcome.
more follow-up on that?
Sure, please go ahead.
Would you be open to share a lot of Leonie's work is grounded in creating space in herself for others who have been marginalized by dominant culture systems? And I guess I'm curious if you want to share maybe Leonie, just even one practical tool that you use to create belonging for yourself, like when you enter a room and scan it and doesn't feel like belonging. Are there things that you do to
Yeah,
create that sense of safety and belonging for yourself?
yeah. So I'll say this, that I'm at a place where I'm a fairly like regulated person, meaning that I have a lot of capacity around managing my own feelings and that of others. And so my practice now is, and something that I encourage people to do, is to kind of name everything. So if I come into a space and I don't feel a sense of welcome, or I don't feel as though I'm being heard, or I get like, truth bumps, I just name it. I really invite people to name it. And that's not with with a view of something needs to change or to be done. It's just a way of me showing up authentically to say, this is something that's present with me in the room, and so it's present in this space. And maybe I'll do something about it. Maybe there's a request that I can attach to it, but I will name those moments. And it's because if I'm joining a space, it's with the understanding that I'm joining to invite my presence is being invited. I'm being asked to join as a collaborator and as a contributor. And if something is getting in the way of that, and there's something that's a long list of things that can happen. Just looking at systems of oppression, what says a toxic culture within the team or organization, all these kinds of things. I just want to kind of name that it's there. And if I have a way of inviting others to support it, to name that as well. Again, this is an invitation for co-holding. But what it often starts with, actually, and where I started off, was when I would have situations where I come into groups and I wasn't having a sense of belonging, my body would react. So one of my things that my body used to do quite frequently is my throat would close up, so I'd actually lose my ability to have my voice. And so what I would do is, I've shared this trick before many times, is I knew I needed to give myself some distance. So I used to go into meetings with a notebook. I always have a notebook with me. And so this is my initial practice before I was able to be more regulated. And I would have Post-its in my front of my notebook. So I'd prepare for meetings, but they were all self-connection Post-its. So they would, and my only job was that when I felt my body reacting to something, the only thing the thing I trained myself to do was to open the front of the notebook, and there'd be a Post-it there saying something like, take 3 deep breaths, because my brain would be offline, it couldn't think. Or it would say things like, go to the bathroom. And it was literally just myself giving that, when they talk about that space between stimulus and response, I literally was giving myself just tools to be able to do that. And it meant that I was taking care of myself, and I wasn't exploding at people, and I wasn't getting frustrated. I wasn't getting angry. I was having a human experience, and I was being deliberate about making room for it. So that was one of the examples. Yeah.
Thank you
So
for
I want to
sharing that.
thank you all. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I want to thank you all for sharing in our time today. We are heading towards close. So I'm going to turn things over to Brian now. as we start towards our closing.
Yeah, just to appreciate that, Leonie. For folks who don't know, Leonie, she shows up in space as you see here, which is like incredibly high capacity. And I think it's just worth underscoring, like that's taken just a ton of work to get to that place, and it's subtle and it's, so to Elizabeth's question, like, yeah, there's so much inner work that is creating the conditions for this. And, coming in a very different body from Leonie, like I keep this little like soft giraffe like on my desk as a reminder to like tune into softness, because like I've not been socialized that way. And so yeah, these little like prompts that remind us to drop back in are part of like the ways we create belonging for ourselves in order to be open to that kind of connection. And it's just, yeah. I'm going to invite Edna to share a little bit about the festival and some more invitations for ongoing connection to other spaces that are happening this month. And then we'll lead us a little closing exercise, but just really grateful for you all for being here. Edna.
Thank you, Brian. So I'm sharing in the chat box. Someone asked about this festival arcade we have. It's a WhatsApp group and you can join there. We have different activities that you can join. Some of them are related to other sessions, but you can also keep track of what's happening overall in the festival. Also, we have a couple of or more sessions through the festival. The festival will end something around the 20th of June. We have around 3 or 4 sessions per week. We have workshops, bonfires about technology for network mapping, and a lot of amazing things. So I'm just want to share my screen also so you can have a fast overlook to, hold on, let me just this and then again here. So these are some of the sessions that are going to be through the next weeks. If you want to join, you can in Ticket Tailor, we have all the next sessions available now. And well, yeah, thank you very much to Leonie and Brian for this amazing session. And we can keep in touch in the festival arcade. And thank you for joining.
Thank you, Edna. No, thanks to Edna and the FITO team. For folks who are new to FITO, they're doing like a really amazing work trying to help build the field of network weaving and create more connections. I'm just really grateful to you all. I'm going to drop one little link here in the chat to, if you want to stay in touch with Building Belonging. I'm going to invite Christina to say a word, our colleague here. Did you raise your hand intentionally, Christina? Or are you just waving?
No, sorry, I was trying to make a heart and I think I clicked my hand, but
Well, Christina is also a member
I'm
of.
also part of the Building Belonging team. I was sending my daughter off for care this morning, so I was off camera most of the time, but I'm very happy to be here and connect with you all and excited to be part of the festival and support y'all. And Building Belonging is doing work around how to build belonging both on these sort of interpersonal level, but also through systems change. So we're sort of focusing on a few different verticals, including care and repair, which is the work that Leonie's leading. There will be more workshops in the fall that will be available to the public. And so if you're interested in staying updated about offerings that we have, please use that link that Brian dropped that says connect to sign up for our mailing list. I'm coordinating a network that's on migration and belonging. I know some of you all have migration in your things that you put in the chat. So if you're interested in our work, also sign up there. So anyway, we're excited to continue to build with you all and learn about each other's work. And thanks for being part of this session today. And thanks Brian and Leonie for leading it.
So I know we're at times. Just want to share some gratitude for you all for helping shape it. It felt really good to be in embodied virtual presence with you all. So just deep gratitude. The closing checkout, if you're willing, as you drop here is, yeah, what's something you're leaving with today? It could be somatic, it could be idea, it could be provocation. And then we'll invite you to say goodbye off mute if you feel so desired. But yeah, just welcoming final responses and thank you all for being here. Action. Aw. Yay, smiles. Slowing down, yeah. Hard work in our culture. Mm. Mm. Lovely. Thank you all. Yeah, I believe the both the chat and the recording will be available for folks who attended afterwards for people who want to come back to this. Yeah, and thanks. I mean, thanks again for taking a risk with us. I know this is a little bit unusual what we did here today, and I acknowledge the weirdness of it, and just am grateful that you're willing to try something, be a bit more embodied. Invite folks to come off mute as you say goodbye in whatever language or custom you have, and just, yeah, grateful for everyone's presence.